Thank you, Josh. It is such a blessing to be back with IJS, to be back on the Daily Sit. And yeah, it's so good to be with all of you today. I hope everyone had a good Shavuot wherever you are. And for those of us who had a long weekend, I hope you got a little bit of rest in. And today I want to offer a blessing practice because our Parsha, well, let me back up actually a second. We are blessed right now in the Jewish world to have multiple schedules of Torah reading. And I'm not going to go into all the nitty-gritty of that. Safe to say that my community is reading Parshat Naso this week. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about. Some of you may have read Parshat Naso on Shabbat this past week. Some of you may be reading it this week. Some of you may have read half of it this past Shabbat and half of it this week. There are a lot of different possibilities this week. But I'm going to, excuse me, but I'm going to be talking about Naso and specifically about one of the most cherished pieces, which I think is, we often think about in Torah, in Jewish mindfulness practice. There are some parshiot that are just totally like golden for practice. And what a week this one is. So what we'll be working with today, of course, is the Birkat Kohanim, the priestly blessing, which gets translated in lots of different ways. It's found in the Jewish liturgy in lots of different places. It's found in daily liturgy in some prayer books. There are blessings over Torah study, and in some prayer books, it's a passage that is recited daily as part of that. It's sometimes repeated in the Amidah, and the standing prayer that's said traditionally 3 times a day in lots of communities. Lots of people say it on Friday nights to one another. Lots of people use it in all kinds of situations, both in the prayer book, outside of the prayer book, adapted in different ways. It's one of the oldest and most ancient texts we have. And what a great opportunity, I think, this blessing offers us to engage in some of our own blessing practice. So I want to offer a little bit of a teaching about this, and then I want to offer us a blessing practice really rooted in Birkat Kohanim. Because Birkat Kohanim, I think, sometimes is such a familiar text that we sometimes forget its power. So I want to invite us, and I apologize, I don't have a source sheet today, but I am going to be speaking some of this out, and it's very easy to find it on Safaria and other places. So I encourage folks after the sit to find it if you like, but I actually really encourage you right now to focus your sustained attention on the teaching and not worrying about finding the text, which may be a little bit countercultural, but I think is actually a really, really important practice. So the priestly blessing is a three-faceted blessing, and it's a blessing that really invites us into certain kind of divine qualities. We're asking and we're offering blessings for being guarded and kept well, to be able to experience the light of the divine presence, to be able to experience divine encounter, and I think most powerfully and importantly, to be able to place peace upon ourselves and on each other, which is a blessing that I think we all could so deeply need today, deeply use today. And so this is a blessing that Aaron and his sons offer the people. And there is incredible power in receiving this blessing, whether it's from a Kohen, someone who's the descendant of Aaron's line in the ancient system, or whether it's just one person offering this blessing to another person, whether it's one person really focusing attention on another and through that focusing, really offering this blessing. Because I think that that's one of the most powerful parts of our tradition is that we truly honor the power and potential of blessings. And there's such a deep well that we get to draw from. There's a Talmudic teaching that we should say 100 blessings a day. And there are lots of ways that that gets interpreted. Some people interpret it more didactically, like, let me make sure I say 100 blessings a day. That's one way to understand it. But perhaps another way, really rooted in our mindfulness practice, is to invite ourselves often to find ways of engaging in mindful presence. And blessing is one of the ways we can engage in mindful presence. And it's also just such a powerful technology for conveying our deepest wishes. Not only that we be showered with divinity and divine flow and shefa and blessing, but also even as one human being to another, that we wish each other well, that we bless each other with goodness, with peace, with ease, with protection, all of these things that are wrapped up in this text. And so I want to invite us into a blessing practice very rooted in this text. And I want to invite us now into that practice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to offer a few phrases, and I'm going to put those phrases into the chat once we move into the silence. And that way they can be easily referenced. And if I think we have captioning on, so hopefully that is also a way of referencing these phrases, but I'm going to make sure that they get dropped into the chat a couple of times so that they're right there for you. And I'm going to be offering a variety of different ways into this practice. And again, I really invite you to take this as you need to. It's invitational. Everything we do here is invitational. And I'll be inviting us to start with the self when we think about blessing. Now, some of this is rooted in a very traditional metta or Buddhist practice of loving kindness and giving each other blessing in a really beautiful way, really well wishing. But I'm actually really inviting us today to think about this in a very Jewish idiom, that we have a very similar practice rooted in the priestly blessing. So, with that as our foundation and as our guide, I'm going to be giving a bit of guidance before we move into the silence. I'll be coming in to offer some scaffolding during the silent pieces. And as I said, I'll be putting the phrases into the chat when we move into the silence. And these phrases that I'm offering are not direct translations of Birkat Kohanim. They are adaptations. They are rooted in the text, but they are shorter to make them a little bit easier to practice with. And one other thing just to say about blessing practice, I'm reading a really beautiful book right now called You Are Good, You Are Enough by Lodro Rinsler, and I'll put that into the chat. One of the things that he says a lot about loving kindness practice is that we're not actually aiming to immediately necessarily feel that which we are blessing, but we find that the more we do it, the easier it gets. And also, this is also from something that I read recently from James Baraz, similar idea of we can find ways to really embody this the more we do it. And I think that our tradition really exemplifies that because of its emphasis on the importance of blessing. And the more we offer blessing and well wishing, the easier it becomes. Even and especially if we don't immediately feel it, we can access that mind state, which is so important today. So I want to invite us moving into practice, finding a comfortable posture wherever your body is, whether you're sitting, lying down, standing, walking even. You can do this in whatever way you need to. And inviting us also, if we haven't yet, to establish our anchor. So our anchor is our steady foundation that we can return to when the mind wanders. I always like to say when and not if the mind wanders, because that's what the mind does. And so when that happens, we gently bring it back to the anchor. You might have an anchor of the breath, sound of bodily sensation. You might notice where your hands are on your lap. You might notice your feet on the floor if that's available to you, or you might notice the sensation of your body in the chair or on the bed or whatever surface it's in. I want to invite us to just take a deep inhalation through the nose and a deep and full exhalation, if this is available to you, through the mouth. Just noticing if any settling arises, allowing yourself to just rest here. And as you feel moved, inviting yourself into this practice, we start with either ourselves, if that feels possible, or if that doesn't feel so easy today, we invite ourselves to work with a benefactor. And we offer these words of blessing. And I really invite you to take these as invitational. You might find one that really works for you. Today, we're just going to sit with the self or a benefactor. There are lots of different ways this practice can go. You can move into a neutral person, you can move into a wider community. But today, I really just want to invite us to work with ourselves and or with a benefactor. And a benefactor is someone that we feel positively towards. Could be a friend, a pet, a family member, somebody from our childhood, an acquaintance, not our closest person, but somebody that we don't have a complex connection to. I think is one way to put it. Where sending blessing is easy. So your choice, of course, in all of this, but these are the options that I'm offering today are the self and another. And we'll offer phrases of blessing. May I be blessed with inner and outer ease. May I be blessed with abundant compassion. May I be blessed with love. May I be blessed with peace. May I be blessed with inner and outer ease. May I be blessed with abundant compassion. May I be blessed with love. May I be blessed with peace. We offer these phrases silently. You can chant them using a melody if that's helpful to remember, or you can say them in a volume just above a whisper internally, offering them towards yourself or offering them outward towards another. And we will sit with these phrases for the next 10 minutes or so, just offering them. And if we find that one really calls to us, as is true for me today, then we can just work with that. I'll repeat them again. These are offerings, of course. If you have phrases that really are calling to you, work with those. And after I repeat them, I will put them into the chat as well. May I be blessed with inner and outer ease. May I be blessed with abundant compassion. May I be blessed with love. May I be blessed with peace. Enjoy your practice, and I will call us back in about 10 minutes or so. reminding ourselves again of the phrases. May I be blessed with inner and outer ease. May I be blessed with abundant compassion. May I be blessed with love. May I be blessed with peace. And gently but firmly inviting your mind, if it's wandered, to come back to the practice for just a few more minutes. In our final moments of practice, as we move to closing, I just want to invite us once again in this moment to offer these blessings with just a bit more kavanah intention, just a bit more kavanah, presence, intention, and attention. And we may continue to offer these blessings seamlessly as we move from our formal practice together into informal relational practice as I turn it back over to Josh for Mourner's Kaddish. But knowing that we don't let go of the practice, we keep working with it in a new way. Thank you all so much for your practice.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I hope you can stick around at the top of the hour for Q&A and conversation. If you need to leave us, we wish you tzedchem l'shalom, farewell, and come back soon. But right now, if you are remembering loved ones, or a loved one, please feel welcome in the chat to include their name. And Harry is going to stick the text of the Mourner's Kaddish up. Thank you. And you're welcome to unmute and join me in reciting the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabba, Be'alma, Divrach, Chirutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, B'chayechon, V'yomechon, V'chayei, Dechol, Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, V'zman Kariv, V'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba, Mevarach, Le'olam, Le'olamei Almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal l'shmei dekudasham brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiram li alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom bimra'a v'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen.
Amen.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So thank you again, Lauren, for your teaching and your guidance here today. Of course, everybody's always welcome to ask a question and in the chat. And so if you can do question in all caps, that just helps us to be aware of it. You are also, of course, able to, we welcome you responding to one another, but just practicing mindful speech in doing so. General rule of thumb that we'd like to keep in mind is fixing, advising, saving, or correcting. Just speak for yourself about your own experience. It's usually a helpful thing to remember. And yes, and thanks, Harry, for also reminding us about Lauren's Substack, which I encourage you to subscribe to. So terrific. So Lauren, thank you so much for that practice and that teaching. As you said, this is one of the gold star weeks for parshas. If you're depending on which parsha you're reading, that's interesting. I decided I'm writing a week ahead for what is a week ahead for me, or what's on the Bahal. Anyway, on Bahalotcha this week, but you're writing on Naso. But I wrote about the priestly blessing on Friday in mine, so about Naso. So anyway, really, we can never have too many blessings and never too many opportunities to engage with the priestly blessings. So, and it's interesting, I imagine I want to give you a chance to talk about this. You focused really on the first circle in what would be typical gratitude or metta practice of focusing on ourselves. But I wonder also how, if you had more time and wanted to like extend it out or encourage people, how do you think about grounding in that, and then the widening circles, and has that shifted for you over the years of your own learning and development? I find to me this is one that I do very frequently, and I'm really curious how that shows up for you these days.
Yeah, thank you, Josh, for that really important question. So, for a long time, it was a lot easier for me to go way outward, right? I could really offer well-wishing to people, to large groups of people, and I still do, right? That's a still important part of my practice. But I've been really moved, partially because of your mention of it in one of your Divrei Torah, actually, by Dr. Karen Aviv's book, Unlearning Jewish Anxiety, and the way in which she talks about tikkun atzmi, which she talks a lot about. I don't know if this is the best translation of tikkun atzmi, but like taking care of oneself, maybe is the way that I'd put it. Um, and I feel like we are in a time right now where we have so much coming at us from so many directions. I mean, I feel, I was thinking this morning, it's like, do I have control over anything? That thought popped into my head for the billionth time in the last, 24 hours, right? Do I have control over anything? And it's like in moments where that despair arises, and I can
Mm,
think of like all the reasons why I'm feeling that despair. It's like maybe this is when I need to actually turn towards the self
mm,
and give myself the compassion. The phrase that I mentioned in the practice today that's really calling to me, may I be blessed with inner and outer ease. Like I
mhm,
just need to keep working with that over and over and over again because I was so moved by how Rabbi Aviv like weaves in and really articulates this idea of taking care of oneself, which I feel like was always in the ether. Like I knew about that, I thought about that, I worked with it. But then like having that articulation, it's like, of course, we can't do tikkun olam without tikkun atzmi. It's not an either or, as someone who really cares about tikkun olam, it's not an either or, it's a both and. So that's
Mhm.
why I really started us there. But I want to also encourage us again, as elu ve'elu, these and these. It's like it's all. It can be the self, it can be another, it can be groups. But I really encourage us to not bypass ourselves by choosing groups over ourselves, and to
Mhm.
not bypass groups by choosing ourselves exclusively either.
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. I think it also goes to the sort of the interrelated, the interconnected and interrelation piece, right? Which is or aspect of this, which is, and actually Molly asked a very interesting, is a very interesting take on this question. At Molly here, I see the question as, um, when we say "May I be blessed with," are we asking that we possess those things in ourselves, or that we receive those from others? And I'm going to guess that, we would say, well, whichever you need at the moment. I mean, but however that can show up for us, and in a certain sense, we're dissolving a little bit of that um, self-other distinction, or softening that a little bit, maybe. Maybe you have a different take.
No, that's basically it. And the only thing I would add really is that not only are we softening those distinctions, but I think our tradition really invites us, especially with Birkat Kohanim, very much for those of you for whom this is resonant, to think about something to receive divine blessing. I think that's something that we tend to shy away from for all kinds of reasons, but it's right there in the tradition. Just as we are asking for qualities within the self, asking to receive those from others, can we open our hearts to receive shefa, to receive divine flow, divine goodness, whatever metaphor for that which is greater that you find resonant. Or if you don't find one resonant, that's fine too, right? That's why I think this is such a beautiful practice because there are so many ways into it.
Hmm. It's interesting when you say that. It makes me think about, a lot of times we talk here about like Shabbat consciousness as like pausing. It doesn't have to be every 7 days. It can be every 7 moments. But another aspect of Shabbat is like, how do we start Shabbat? Lecha dodi likrat kala p'nei Shabbat nekabla. Like, let's go out into the fields and actually receive. We're talking about receive. Shabbat is an orientation towards receiving, at least part of it, or at least the beginning of it. And there is, I think about like the giving tree, the story of the giving tree, which has been critiqued rightfully as like it's this story of, this mother that, just continues and continues and continues to give until she's just a stump that's left. And how important it is, if we're really going to be in a relationship, that we actually be both giving and receiving at the same time. And I think you're highlighting sometimes we can, in our culture, we can be conditioned to really undervalue the need to be receptive, to be open and be able to receive and recognize that blessing is here. It's not just that we're giving out, but that we're also receiving.
Yeah, and especially I think this is really true of rabbis, cantors, educators, teachers in any form in the culture that we are in. Like what you just said about, we're so conditioned to, all the output. I just think that that's even truer
Mm,
for people who are rabbis and cantors and other there's a certain way I've heard the term recently, like the rabbinic content grind or the rabbinic content churn.
mm,
It's like more
mhm,
and more and more and more and more because we are Bamidbar, not only in terms of our actual Torah, but also like actually Bamidbar. And I think we're yearning for some orientation Bamidbar in that wilderness.
mm,
And so it's like if we can produce, if we can give until I love your bringing in of the giving tree because that's a very good analogy. Somehow that will orient us. But what if we open to receiving?
mhm, mhm. Which is different than taking, I think also is also really
Yes.
important. Receiving, taking is a extractive connotation to it versus receiving is, well, someone's giving it to you, so like take it. It's a gift. It's there. They want you to have it. So I want to get to Glenn's question. Glenn has a question here. For me, may I be blessed as like a door which has to be opened, even when the door is within. How do we see through or perceive through the aspect of there being a door? Mm.
Glenn, I really, really love your question. That's so resonant for me as well. You know, honestly, I think the first part of it is exactly what you've done, acknowledgement. Just acknowledging. It's really challenging. There's like a door that I've got to go through. It's not immediate, if I'm understanding the question properly. It's not an immediate thing. There's actually a bit of a transition, a bit of a passage that I have to go through. And I think that's really okay. I'm learning a little bit more about loving kindness practice from a teacher who gave this analogy recent, like when I was listening to a talk that he um, gave kind of an analogy of like, what is the thing when you're so stuck and like not able to really like offer, he's using a strictly Buddhist framing, so we would frame it a little differently. Like he talks about, not being able to offer loving kindness. Well, there's one monk who'd been like meditating for a long, long time, and he was really struggling with loving kindness practice. And then he found a bee, I guess, like in his hut, which to me was like, I heard this and I'm like, I'm listening to the talk and I'm hearing this story and I'm like, oh my God, like, my first impulse is like, swat that away, like noticing that impulse arising, right? But in the talk, he was saying, this particular monk, like, noticed that creature was like, wow, how extraordinary. And in that moment, he had a bit of an insight of like, oh, that is extending loving kindness and blessing. So there's no, like, there are classical ways this gets taught in different ways. We have our classic formulation and the priestly blessing. And of course, the rabbinic tradition has all kinds of very particular framings for blessings that learned about in great technical detail in rabbinical school. And those are very important. And also, sometimes we can offer these blessings and engage in this practice in ways that may not align exactly with classical forms, but are still very much the
Right.
practice. And so that's really the invitation is to say, what's working for you? I mean, I'll say one last thing on this for myself of like, when I notice that I feel like I just can't get through that door, I'm like, I can't, repeat these phrases silently to myself. I actually will like put them to some kind of melody. There's some metta chants that I love that I'll use like the melody of, and I'll like substitute whichever phrases I'm working with as a way of like not only remembering where I am, but also opening up to the practice. So it's actually using a form that kind of opens that door for me.
Um, before we close up, there's a question about, you mentioned a book that you're reading that you folks were interested in knowing the name of when you were teaching, I didn't catch
Yeah,
it.
absolutely. And I'll say this slowly so folks want to capture it in the chat. You Are Good, You Are Enough by Lodro Winsler, contemporary Buddhist teacher. This book just was published a couple of months ago. And effectively, it's all about the concept of basic goodness, which I think is intrinsic to our tradition. He's obviously not coming at it from that perspective, but I genuinely believe intrinsic goodness is very much at the foundation of our tradition. And one of the things that Jewish mindfulness can help us do is to get back there. So it's called You Are Good, You Are Enough by
Yeah.
Lodro Rinsler.
Great. Harry just put the link in the chat. Fantastic, from Shambhala Press. Okay. There was one other question, which I think we're not going to have time to, because I actually have to wrap this up. But we'll come back. Lauren, thank you so much, as always, for being Nancy. It's right above, it's in the line right above where you just chatted. If you could just go right there. Thank you so much, Lauren, for your teaching today and your Torah, and for all the good work that you do. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and to Harry for holding down our uh, backstage. Thank you, and we'll be back tomorrow. I think Mark is back tomorrow, even for those who've been waiting for Mark. So until then, I hope everybody you're well. Look forward to being with you again soon. Take care.